the Threshin battle group emerged from. Jump space with weapons already hot. Commander T-Varel gripped his command. Throne as the navigation display. Stabilized, 43 warships, 12 support. Vessels, enough firepower to subdue a sector capital, his target a small human outpost designated Theta 9. Sitting on the edge of what dominion? Cartographers called contested space. Contested, the word irritated him. Humans had no claim to this region. They had arrived 80 years ago, built a handful of facilities, and then done nothing, no expansion, no military presence worth mentioning, just quiet existence. Other species whispered warnings about humanity, ancient empires that remembered older conflicts spoke of them in hushed tones, but those empires were gone now, faded into history. The Threshin dominion was rising and rising. Powers needed to test themselves against something. T-Varel's secondary display showed the outpost, a small habitat ring surrounding a central docking hub. Sensor readings indicated 312 life signs, minimal shielding, no visible weapons in placements. Confirm target status, he ordered. Lieutenant Sorvak at the sensor station tapped his controls, confirmed. Commander, no active defense systems. Communication arrays are standard. Civilian grade, they haven't detected our approach. Of course they haven't, T-Varel allowed himself a small satisfaction. Human technology was outdated. Their ships rarely ventured beyond established trade routes, the dominions. Intelligence assessment had been clear. Humanity had grown soft during their centuries of isolation. All vessels report weapons ready, Sorvak announced. T-Varel studied the display. One final time, 312 lives, civilians according to the data, researchers, support staff, families. The Dominion Council had debated this target for 3 months. Some argued for a military installation. Others suggested an unoccupied demonstration. But the council had chosen this. Send a message, show that the Dominion would strike anywhere against anyone, make the humans understand that their quiet existence meant nothing. Commence bombardment, T-Varel said. The forward batteries opened fire. Energy weapons punched through the void. Brilliant spears of focused annihilation, they struck the habitat. Ring without resistance, armor plating vaporized. Atmosphere vented in frozen clouds. The central hub shattered, pieces tumbling away into darkness. T-Varel watched the life sign counter drop. 211, 108.43. Cease fire, he said. The guns fell silent. Debris fields spread across his screen. Small emergency pods launched from the wreckage, 15 of them carrying the survivors. T-Varel noted their trajectory. They would reach a nearby moon in approximately 6 hours. Should we pursue the pods? Sorvak asked. No, T-Varel leaned back. Let them tell the story. Let humanity know what happened here. The communication console flickered. An incoming transmission, weak and distorted, coming from the debris field. T-Varel hesitated, then gestured to accept. The image resolved. A human female, blood streaking her face, standing in what remained of a control room. Behind her, the void of space showed. Through a hull breach, she looked directly at T-Varel's pickup. You have made a terrible mistake. Her voice carried no fear, no desperation, just cold certainty. The transmission ended. T-Varel felt something move through his thoracic cavity, not fear, discomfort. The humans had no military presence. Here, no reinforcements for weeks. What could they possibly do? Return to jump coordinates, he ordered. We've delivered the message. The fleet turned away from the wreckage. Behind them, the emergency pods drifted toward the moon. Ahead, the jump window waited. T-Varl told himself the humans' words meant nothing. The Dominion had proven its strength. The galaxy would take notice. He did not see the automatic distress beacon activating in the debris. He did not see the encoded transmission racing toward human space at speeds his scientists considered impossible. He did not know that 312 human deaths had just triggered something that should have remained dormant. The human woman's face stayed in his thoughts. Her eyes had not looked at him with hatred or grief. She had looked at him with pity, as if she already knew something he could not comprehend. The fleet entered jump space. T-Varl told himself the worst was over. It had not even begun. Fleet Admiral Helena Voss had not worn her uniform in 4 years. She stood in her quarters aboard the command station sentinel, staring at the gray fabric spread across her bunk. The metal bars, the rank insignia, the service ribbons from campaigns fought before most of her current personnel were born. The emergency alarm had awakened her 3 hours ago. She had answered without question, pulling on a duty jacket. Moving to the command center. The first reports had been fragmentary. An outpost, an attack unknown. Aggressors. Then the full casualty list arrived. 312 names scrolled across her display. Children among them. Families who had chosen to live on the edge of human space because they believed in exploration, in discovery, in the quiet expansion of their species. Voss had read every name. Then she had sent a single order to Earth Defense. Command, activate Protocol Crimson. Protocol Crimson, the response to an unprovoked attack on human civilians. The document had been written 300 years ago. During the last war humanity had fought. It had never been used. Many assumed it was ceremonial, a relic of a more aggressive age. They were wrong. The command center around her moved with practiced efficiency. Officers who had spent years running simulations, maintaining equipment, keeping skills sharp. They had always known this day might come. Admiral Commander Walsh approached. Tablet extended. We have identification on the aggressor fleet, Threshin. Dominion, mid-tier power, approximately 40 worlds. Their battle group left a clear energy signature. How many ships? 43 combat vessels, 12 support. Voss took the tablet. The Threshin. Dominion, she had heard the name during diplomatic briefings, a rising power, eager for recognition. They had sent emissaries to Earth 3 years ago, requesting trade agreements. Humanity had politely declined. Now this status of available response forces. Walsh tapped controls. A holographic display bloomed above the central table. Red icons marked human assets across explored space. Most were concentrated near core worlds, but 7 icons glowed. Amber hunter-killer squadrons positioned along the frontier. Squadron 9 is closest, Walsh said. Captain Radek commands 14 ships. They can intercept the Threshin fleet within 18 hours. Voss studied the display. 14 ships against 43 in conventional warfare. Those were terrible odds, but humanity had never fought conventional wars. Order Radek to pursue full engagement. Authorization. Walsh hesitated. Admiral regulations. Require a warning before. 312 civilians, Commander, Voss's voice. Remained level. The warning was there. Outpost burning. Radek knows his duty. The transmission went out, across the darkness between systems. 14 human warships altered course. Their crews had been waiting for this moment, training for scenarios exactly like this one. Captain Radek, a man who had never seen combat, accepted the order with a single acknowledgement. Voss turned to the wider display. Beyond the immediate pursuit, larger forces were mobilizing, battleships emerging from orbital docks, supply vessels loading ammunition, troop transports preparing for something no one had yet discussed. Where are their home systems? She asked. Walsh brought up stellar cartography. 40 worlds. One home system, defensive platforms, planetary shields. Population of 12 billion. Estimated travel time, Voss said. 17 days with full fleet. Voss paused. Admiral, we're not seriously considering 17 days, Voss nodded. Start the preparations. The command center fell silent. Officers exchanged glances. They had trained for this, planned for this, but the reality of what Voss was suggesting, a strike against an enemy's home world, felt different when spoken aloud. Voss understood their hesitation. She felt it herself, but she had watched the footage from Theta 9, the habitat ring breaking apart, the atmosphere venting, the emergency pods launching, carrying people who would never see their families again. The Threshen Dominion had declared war on a remote human outpost. Now humanity would respond. Contact Earth, Voss said. Inform the Council that Protocol Crimson is active. And find me everything we have on Threshen military doctrine. I want to know how they think, how they fight, and how they break. The command center returned to motion. Around her, humanity's dormant machine accelerated toward full power. 3,000 light-years away, Commander Tevril celebrated his victory. He did not yet understand that he had awakened something far older and far more dangerous than any power his species had ever faced. Humanity had not forgotten how to end wars. They had simply been waiting for a reason to remember. Captain Radek watched the jump countdown reach 0. His ship, the Hammer of Resolve, emerged from folded space with weapons cycling and targeting systems already locked. Around him, 13 other human warships appeared in formation, their hulls gleaming against the orange glow of an unnamed star. The navigation display updated. 3 million kilometers ahead, the Threshen fleet drifted at sublight speed, their formation loose, their sensor coverage relaxed. They were not expecting pursuit. They had no reason to believe anyone could have followed their jump trajectory. Radek had followed it anyway. Human navigation technology had advanced in ways the galaxy did not understand. When the Threshen ships burned through jump space, they left traces, energy signatures, gravitational distortions, path that human sensors could read like footprints in fresh snow. Enemy fleet confirms 43 combat vessels, his tactical officer reported. They appear to be in standard transit formation, no combat alert status. Shields not raised, weapons cold. Radek nodded. The Threshens thought they were safe. They had struck their target and withdrawn, believing any response would take weeks to organize. They had No idea that human ships had been waiting along their likely escape routes before the debris from Theta 9 had finished cooling. All ships, radar transmitted, execute. Attack pattern Delta, priority targets. Command vessels, communications. Engines. I want them blind, crippled, and unable to run. The human squadron accelerated. 14 ships moving as one, their formation shifting into a spearhead, thrusters. Burned at maximum output, weapons. Capacitors charged, Radek felt the vibration through his command chair, the hum of power building throughout the hull. 500,000 km, the Threshen sensors finally detected them. Radek watched the enemy formation scramble, shields flickered to life. Weapons began tracking, communication. Signals erupted between their ships. Confused and panicked, they had not expected this, they had not prepared for this. 200,000 km, Radek's tactical display showed targeting solutions. Fire. The human fleet opened up. Missiles launched first, streaking ahead. On chemical thrusters before their main drives ignited. Railgun rounds followed. Solid slugs of depleted uranium moving at fractions of light speed, energy. Weapons pulsed, brilliant beams that crossed the distance in less than a heartbeat. The first salvo struck the Threshen formation like a fist through paper. 3 enemy ships lost engines. Immediately, 2 more exploded as reactor containment failed. The flagship, a massive battle cruiser at the formation center, took multiple hits. To its command tower, communications arrays vaporized, bridge sections opened. To space. Radek watched the damage assessment with cold satisfaction. 14 human ships had just accomplished what most species would have required 100 vessels to attempt, but humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. They did not fight fair, they fought to win. Enemy fleet is attempting to regroup. Tactical reported, their command structure appears compromised. Secondary vessels are responding to independent initiative. Continue engagement, Radek ordered. No breaks, no mercy. The human squadron pressed forward. Weaving through the chaos, each ship selected its targets with precision. Engine sections, weapon mounts, bridge modules, nothing was wasted. Every shot had a purpose. Commander T-Veryl's flagship, the Dominion's Pride, drifted through the battlefield with half its systems offline. Radek's sensors showed the ship still had power, still had life support, still had a command crew fighting to restore control. He made a decision. All ships break engagement, form perimeter around the enemy fleet. No one leaves. The human warships pulled back, positioning themselves at strategic coordinates. The Threshen survivors, 27 ships now damaged and scattered, found themselves surrounded. Escape vectors covered, jump routes blocked. Radek opened a channel to the Dominion's Pride. Threshen commander, this is Captain Radek, Human Defense Force. You have attacked an unarmed human outpost. You have murdered 312 civilians. You will now surrender your remaining vessels and prepare to receive a boarding party. Silence, then a voice strained and edged with disbelief. Human, you are 14 ships. We still have combat capability. This is not. Commander Radek cut him off. Your fleet is surrounded. Your command structure is destroyed. Your weapons are offline. This is not a negotiation. This is your Only warning. The channel went quiet. Radek waited, counting seconds. Behind him, his crew sat frozen at their stations, watching the display, watching the enemy ships drift in helpless formation. Captain Tactical said quietly, "The enemy flagship is lowering shields." Radek allowed himself a small nod. "Boarding parties prepare to launch and send word to Admiral Voss. First phase complete. The Threshin assault force has been neutralized." He looked at the battered enemy fleet. These ships had killed civilians, had destroyed an outpost, had started a war they could not finish. Now they would learn what that meant. The Threshin High Command chamber had never been this quiet. Supreme Commander Yaddle stared at the tactical display, his manipulators gripping the edge of the central table. 3 hours ago, the display had shown 43 green icons representing the battle group returning from Outpost Theta 9. Now the icons were red: damaged, disabled, surrendered. A human fleet had intercepted them. 14 ships, 14 against 43, and the humans had won. The survivors are reporting minimal casualties on the human side, his intelligence officer said. 2 ships damaged, no confirmed losses. Yaddle made a sound deep in his throat. 14 ships engaged our battle group and suffered no losses. The humans targeted our command structure first, disabled communications, then they systematically eliminated our ability to coordinate. By the time our ships could react, they were fighting individually against a coordinated force. The words echoed through the chamber. Around Yaddle, members of the Dominion Council shifted in their positions. Some showed fear, others disbelief. A few, the ones who had argued against this attack, showed quiet satisfaction. "We need to negotiate," Councillor Vishak said. She had voted against the Theta 9 operation. "The humans have proven they can strike faster than we anticipated. We should negotiate." Councillor Htan slammed a manipulator against the table. "We are the Threshin Dominion. We do not negotiate with isolated primitives who ambush our forces." The humans used surprise and inferior tactics. They cannot sustain this. Yaddle watched the argument spiral. Both sides had points. The human victory had been impressive, but 14 ships could not threaten the Dominion's core worlds. Defensive platforms, planetary shields, a home fleet of 300 vessels. But something bothered him. The human fleet had appeared too quickly. Their navigation capabilities exceeded Dominion estimates by orders of magnitude, and their targeting accuracy had been perfect, almost as if they had practiced this exact scenario. "Order all border stations to maximum alert," Yaddle said. "Recall the home fleet from training exercises and send a diplomatic request to human space. I want to know what they want." "Supreme Commander," the communications officer's voice carried an edge Yaddle had never heard before. "We are receiving multiple reports from frontier sectors. Human ships are appearing. Our supply depots, fuel stations, communication relays." The tactical display updated. Red icons bloomed across the Dominion's border regions. 23 separate contacts, all human, all positioned at critical infrastructure points. How? Yaddle breathed. "We don't know. They weren't detected approaching, they simply appeared." The chamber fell silent again. This was not a single battle group seeking revenge. This was something else. Something coordinated. something that suggested the humans had been watching the Dominion for far longer than anyone suspected. Supreme Commander, another officer voice. Trembling, the human ships are transmitting a message, broad spectrum. All frequencies. Play it. The image that appeared was not human. It showed a Threshen officer, Commander Tivell, standing in what appeared to be a human detention facility. Behind him, human guards in armor watched without expression. I am Commander Tivell of the Dominion battle group that attacked Outpost Theta 9. His voice was mechanical, the words clearly forced. I am here to tell you that the human response is not what we expected. They are not what we expected. You must. The transmission cut. A new face appeared, human female, older, with gray-streaked hair and eyes that held no emotion. I am Fleet Admiral Helena Voss. You have 6 hours to surrender all military forces in the frontier sectors and submit to human inspection. After that we will assume you have chosen to continue hostilities. The choice is yours. The transmission ended. Udall stared at the blank display. 6 hours, Counselor Vishak whispered. Against the entire Dominion. She's bluffing, Dan said. One human admiral cannot threaten our species. Udall wanted to believe that. He wanted to think this was posturing, a desperate attempt to salvage something from a failed attack, but Commander Tivell's face haunted him, the fear in those eyes, the urgency in his words. They are not what we expected. What had Tivell meant? What had the humans shown him? Send a message to Admiral Voss, Yatal said slowly. Request clarification of her demands. We need more time. The communications officer worked his controls, then froze. Supreme Commander, I cannot establish contact with any of our frontier sectors. The communication relays are gone, all of them. Yatal felt something he had not experienced in decades, genuine primal fear. The humans had not just attacked his fleet, they had blinded his entire border defense network. In the time it had taken to debate in this chamber, the humans had systematically dismantled the Dominion's ability to see, to communicate, to coordinate. And they had done it without firing a shot at a civilian target. Yatal looked at the tactical display, at the red icon spreading across Dominion space. At the countdown timer someone had added to the corner of the screen. 5 hours, 47 minutes remained. He had no idea what would happen when the timer reached 0. But he was beginning to understand that the Dominion had made an enemy it could not defeat. Fleet Admiral Voss watched the countdown timer on her display. 3 hours, 12 minutes remaining. Her fleet surrounded the Threshen home world. 43 human warships positioned in perfect synchronization, their weapons trained on the defensive platforms that circled the planet below. The platforms had not noticed them at first. Human stealth technology had advanced beyond anything the Threshens could detect. But now the platforms knew. Their crews scrambled to raise shields, to power weapons, to coordinate a response that would never come, because Voss had already mapped their firing arcs, their communication channels, their command hierarchy. She knew this defensive network better than its own operators. Admiral Commander Walsh pointed to the tactical display. The Threshen home fleet is mobilizing 300 ships. They'll reach engagement range in 40 minutes. Voss nodded. She had expected this. The Home fleet was the Dominion's last line of defense, the force they had kept in reserve during their expansion, 300 warships, many of them outdated but still dangerous. But Voss had not come to fight 300 ships, she had come to make a point. Send the ultimatum again, she said, and transmit our tactical assessment to their command. Let them see what we see. The transmission went out. Voss had prepared it carefully, not a demand, not a threat, a simple presentation of facts, the positions of every human ship, the targeting solutions locked onto every defensive platform, the projected outcome of any engagement. She did not exaggerate, she did not embellish, the numbers spoke for themselves. The Threshin home fleet stopped moving. Voss watched their formation scatter. Individual captains arguing with Central Command, trying to understand what their sensors were telling them. Human ships had been orbiting their home world for 3 days, 3 days of intelligence gathering, 3 days of positioning, 3 days of watching and waiting. The Threshins had never noticed. How did you know? Walsh asked quietly. How did you know they wouldn't detect us? Voss allowed herself a small smile. Because they're arrogant, they've spent decades expanding into weaker species territory. They've never faced an enemy that could match their technology. They stopped looking for threats they couldn't imagine. The countdown timer continued. 2 hours. 1 hour. On the planet below, Voss knew chaos was spreading. Civilian broadcasts showed panic in the streets. Government officials demanded answers. Military leaders argued over strategy. The Dominion, which had presented itself as an unbreakable power, was fracturing under its first real test. She felt no satisfaction in this. She had not wanted war. Humanity had not wanted war, but the Threshins had made their choice when they targeted Theta 9. 312 civilians, families, children, people who had trusted humanity's protection. Voss would not fail them. Admiral Walsh's voice carried a note of surprise. Incoming transmission. Threshin Supreme Commander Yatal, he's requesting direct communication. Put him through. The image resolved. An older Threshin male, his carapace showing the marks of age and authority. He looked at Voss with eyes that held exhaustion and something else, something she recognized. Fear not for himself, for his species. Fleet Admiral Voss, Yatal's voice was steady. I am prepared to discuss terms. You have no terms to discuss, Voss replied. Surrender of all military forces, cession of authority to human oversight, extradition of every officer who participated in the Theta 9 attack. Those are the conditions. And if I refuse? Voss gestured to Walsh. The tactical display updated, showing the full extent of human forces now positioned throughout Dominion space, not just the 43 ships at the homeworld, but hundreds more: supply vessels, troop transports, battle platforms. She had not brought an invasion force. She had brought an occupation force. This is not a war you can win, Supreme Commander. You attacked civilians. You murdered innocent people. And now you will face the consequences of that decision, not because we are cruel, but because we will not allow it to happen again. Yatal stared at the display, the fear in his eyes deepened. 300 ships, he whispered, against an enemy we cannot see, cannot track, cannot understand. Your ships are not the target, Voss said, your ability to wage war is the target and it is already destroyed. You just haven't accepted it yet. The transmission ended. Voss turned to Walsh. Prepare the boarding parties. When the countdown reaches 0, we take the defensive platforms. No unnecessary casualties, but no hesitation either. She looked at the planet below. 12 billion inhabitants, a civilization that had chosen to prove its strength by attacking those weaker than itself. They had miscalculated. They had assumed humanity was weak because humanity chose peace. They had not understood that peace was a choice and choices could change. The countdown timer reached 0. Execute, Voss said. The human fleet moved as one, and they, Threshen Dominion, learned what happened to those who threatened humanity's children. Commander Tivrel stood in the observation room of the human detention facility and watched his civilization end, not with fire, not with destruction, but with silence. 17 minutes, that was all. It had taken 17 minutes for human warships to disable every defensive platform orbiting his home world. 17 minutes for the fleet that had once protected 12 billion people to become scrap metal drifting in formation. The humans had not killed anyone. Not a single Threshen soldier had died in the assault. Tivrel had watched the battle footage, had studied every engagement, had searched for evidence of cruelty or vengeance. There was none, just cold, precise, absolute efficiency. Weapons targeted. Weapons, shields neutralized shields. Crews evacuated before their sections were disabled. The humans had planned for everything, including mercy. How are you watching this, Tivrel? Asked the guard standing behind him. The human female did not react. We believe in transparency. You should understand what your actions have caused. My actions, I followed orders. 312 civilians died because you followed orders. The guard's voice remained flat. You chose to fire on an unarmed outpost. You chose not to issue a warning. You chose to kill children. Tivrel felt his throat close. He had not thought about children. The attack had been abstract, targets on a display, life signs on a counter. He had not imagined small bodies, families, futures. Ended. Supreme Commander Yaddle has surrendered, the guard continued. Dominion Council has been arrested. Your military is being disarmed as we speak. By what authority? Tivrel turned from the window. The humans have no jurisdiction here, no legal right. 312 civilians. The guard stepped closer. That is our jurisdiction. That is our right. You took lives. Now you answer for it. The door opened. Another human entered. Older, with gray-streaked hair and an expression that revealed nothing. Fleet Admiral Voss. Tivrel recognized her from the transmissions. Commander Tivrel. Voss stopped a few meters away. You requested to see me. Tivrel had requested nothing, but he understood now that he was not in control here. He had not been in control since the moment he ordered his ships to fire on Theta 9. Why did you stop? He asked. You could have destroyed everything, killed billions, ended our species. Why didn't you? Voss studied him for a long moment. Because we are not you, because we do not murder civilians to prove a point. Because when this is over, we have to live with what we've done. You invaded our space, disabled our defenses, imprisoned our leadership. You attacked an unarmed outpost. Voss's voice hardened. You killed our people. And now your military no longer exists. Your government no longer functions. Your ability to threaten anyone is gone. Tivrel felt the words settle over him. The Dominion had spent centuries building its power, warships, alliances, territory. It had all vanished in less than a month, not because the humans were stronger, but because they were more patient, more prepared, more willing to wait for the right moment. How long, he asked, how long were you watching us? Voss almost smiled. Long enough, we knew about the Theta 9 planning 3 months. Before your council voted, we had ships positioned along your escape routes. Before your fleet left dock, we had boarding teams ready to capture your survivors before you fired your first shot. You knew. Tyrell's voice cracked. You knew we were coming and you let it happen. You let your people die. The room went very quiet. We let them die. Voss stepped forward. And for the first time Tyrell saw something other than control in her expression. Pain, deep, raw bleeding. Pain. I did not let anyone die, Commander. You killed them. You pulled the trigger. You watched their life signs vanish from your display and you called it a victory. She stopped a meter away, close enough that Tyrell could see the moisture gathering in her eyes. I gave the order to intercept you. I approved the plan to let the attack happen. I made the choice to sacrifice 312 lives so that the galaxy would see what happens to those who harm us. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I have to live with that every day, every night, every time I close my eyes. Tyrell had no response. He had never considered that the humans might have allowed the attack, that they might have calculated the cost and accepted it, that their admiral might carry the weight of those deaths the same way he carried the weight of his orders. Why, he asked finally, why would you do that? Because now every species in the galaxy knows, every empire, every alliance, every power that thought humanity was weak and scattered and easy prey. Voss turned away. They all watched what we did to you. They all saw that we could have destroyed everything, and they all saw that we chose not to. She walked toward the door. Think about that, Commander, when you're standing trial for your crimes, when you're explaining to the galaxy why you attacked unarmed civilians. Think about the fact that we could have killed you all and we didn't. The door closed behind her. Tyrell turned back to the window. Below his home world rotated slowly, beautiful and untouched. He had started a war against a remote human outpost. Humanity had ended it. And now he understood what that truly meant. The galactic community watched the Threshen surrender ceremony in stunned silence. Representatives from 73 species filled the observation gallery of the neutral station designated Unity. They had come to witness the formal end of the Threshen Dominion, to see how the humans would conduct themselves in victory. Most expected gloating, demands, humiliation. Instead, they watched Fleet Admiral Helena Voss stand before the Threshen delegation and accept a single document. The terms were simple: military disarmament, reparations paid to the families of Theta 9 victims, extradition of the officers responsible for the attack. No territory seized, no population subjugated, no resources extracted. Voss signed the document, then turned to face the gallery. The Threshen Dominion no longer exists, she said. In its place, we recognize the Threshen Restoration government which has agreed to our terms and will work to rebuild trust with the species its military harmed. This war is over. A murmur ran through the gallery. The humans had won a decisive victory and asked for nothing, no land, no trade, concessions, no strategic advantages, just justice for 312 dead civilians. It made no sense. Wars were fought for resources, for territory, for power. Everyone knew this. Everyone accepted this. The humans had just rewritten the rules. In the gallery's rear section, Commander Tivel sat in restraints watching his former leaders sign away their authority. He had been spared execution at Voss's request, not out of mercy but because she wanted him to witness, to remember, to understand. He understood now. The humans had not fought to destroy the Threshen species. They had fought to destroy the Threshen ability to threaten others, and they had succeeded so completely that no Threshen would ever consider violence against humans again, not because they feared retaliation, but because they feared what they had become. After the ceremony, Voss walked through the station's observation corridor, looking out at the stars. Tivel's guard brought him to her as arranged. "You wanted to see me again," she said, without turning. "You could have taken everything." Tivel replied, "Why didn't you?" Voss was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "My species has a long memory. Commander, we remember every war we fought, every enemy we've defeated, every mistake we've made, and we learned a long time ago that victory means nothing if you become the thing you fought against." She turned to face him. "Your council thought we were weak. Because we chose peace, they thought our isolation meant we had grown soft. They thought we had forgotten how to fight." She shook her head. "We never forgot. We just hoped we would never need to remember. And now the galaxy knows. Every species watching this broadcast knows that humanity will defend its people, that we will pursue our enemies across the galaxy, that we will dismantle any government that threatens us." She paused. "And they also know that we will stop, that we will not become conquerors, that we will return to our lives and leave them to theirs." Tevril looked down at his restraints. "What happens to me? You will stand trial, you will answer for your actions, and you will spend the rest of your life knowing that your choices ended your civilization." Voss's expression softened slightly. "That is not revenge, Commander. That is justice." She walked away. Tevril watched her go, watched the human admiral who had defeated his species with less than 200 ships and 0 civilian casualties. She moved like someone carrying a burden he could not see. 312 names, 312 deaths she had chosen to allow because the lesson mattered more. He had called her a monster when the surrender terms were announced. Now he wondered if monsters were capable of mercy. The observation corridor emptied. Tevril stood alone watching the stars, thinking about children he had not thought about before. Small lives ended because he had followed orders, because he had not asked questions, because he had assumed power meant the right to destroy. He had been wrong. The humans had shown him that, not with lectures or threats, but with actions, with restraint, with mercy that felt more devastating than any weapon. The galaxy would remember this, not as a victory of force, but as a lesson. What happened to those who threatened humanity? And the lesson would last forever. 6 months after the surrender, the human fleet returned to the darkness. Not to hide, not to retreat, but to wait, because humanity had learned something important during the Thresher conflict. The galaxy was watching, and the galaxy had seen. Admiral Helena Voss stood on the observation deck of the command station. Sentinel watching the last human warships enter their patrol positions. The Thresher campaign had cost her something she could never replace. 312 lives, 312 names she recited every morning before beginning her duties. But it had also given her species something precious: security. Not the security of walls and weapons, but the security of reputation. Every power in known space now understood that humanity was not weak, was not scattered, was not easy prey. Humanity was patient, humanity was prepared, and humanity would always respond. Admiral Commander Walsh approached, tablet in hand. New intelligence report. The Vel Confederation has been conducting reconnaissance near our border sectors. They appear to be testing our response times. Voss took the tablet. The Vel Confederation, a young species, ambitious, eager to expand. Their advisors had likely shown them the Thresher campaign footage, had explained what happened to those who attacked human civilians. But ambition made species foolish, and foolish species made mistakes. What are their military assets? Approximately 200 combat vessels. Limited defensive infrastructure. Their leadership is fractured, with several factions advocating for territorial expansion. Voss handed back the tablet. Send a diplomatic team, make contact, establish communication, and if they continue their reconnaissance, remind them of the Threshan example. Walsh hesitated. You think they'll listen? I think they'll calculate. Voss turned back to the observation deck. The galaxy is full of species who believe they're the exception, who think their technology is superior, their tactics are innovative, their situation is unique. They look at the Threshans and say, we would have done better. And would they? No. Voss's voice held absolute certainty. They wouldn't, because they don't understand what we are, what we've always been. She watched the stars for a long moment. Somewhere out there, a young species was making plans, testing boundaries, considering the cost of conflict against an enemy that had not fought a war in centuries. They would look at human isolation and see weakness. They would look at human peacefulness and see fear. They would look at human restraint and see mercy. That could be exploited. They would be wrong. Admiral Walsh's voice carried a note of urgency. The Vel Confederation has just issued a formal protest. They're claiming the border sectors as their territory. They're demanding we withdraw our patrols. Voss closed her eyes. 312 names waited in her memory. 312 reasons to respond differently this time. Send a single ship, she said. 1 cruiser, position it at the contested coordinates and transmit a message. What should the message say? Voss opened her eyes. Tell them we're watching, tell them we're waiting, and tell them that the Threshan Dominion thought we were weak. She turned to face Walsh. Tell them the Threshans were wrong. The message went out across the galaxy. Species watched and waited. Some hoped for peace, others hoped for conflict. Few, the ones who remembered older wars, simply hoped the humans would continue to show restraint. But they all understood one thing now. Humanity did not seek war, did not want war, did not need war to prove its strength. But humanity would always, always finish what others started. In the darkness between stars, the human fleet waited, not hidden, not lurking, simply present, a reminder that peace was not absence of capability, peace was capability held in check. The Vel Confederation would make its choice, every species would watch that choice, and somewhere in a detention facility orbiting a defeated world, Commander T. Verrill would remember what happened the last time someone tested humanity. He would remember 312 names. He would remember the look in Admiral Voss's eyes when she said justice was not revenge. And he would know with absolute certainty that the humans had not finished teaching their lesson. They had just started.